It's a great pleasure to have you here today with us as a special guest to speak to the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents. Thank you very much for taking the time. I'm Thanos Dimadis, and I would like, first of all, to address our audience here today and introduce you, Paula, say a few things about you that you are, first of all, reading your resume and your bio, you have accomplished extraordinary things. And from what I'm understanding, you are the leading journalist in Chile, and you're also a writer, you're a professor, you are also the executive director of the Women and Media chair at the Universidad Diego Portales. You've been a columnist and editor for the most prominent media in Chile for years, and also I've seen a lot of interviews of yours at CNN Chile, and you have been also accomplished and distinguished with several awards, including Young Global Press Free, the Young Global Forum of the World Economic Forum. You've been a Young Global Leader, which is a great also distinguishment. And I must say that I'm reading here that in 2018 you won, along with your team, the Award of Excellence in Journalism for Investigative Reporting on Sexual Harassment and Abuse in Chile, which is something that I would like to ask you. Also, I have a lot of questions about that. And one of the other extraordinary things that I've been reading in your resume is that in 2015 you've been you had been one of the 100 most powerful women of the year according to BBC. How do you feel about that? Let's start by asking you about this because I got really impressed, and what it means for you, what it means for the local community, for the national community of Chile that you represent as a journalist.
Well, first of all, thank you, Thanos, so much for inviting me. It's really my honor to be talking to you. The association that you represent is really one of the most important associations in the world. And I also believe a lot in the power of the united journalists in the world to tackle and to face all the challenges that our profession is having to face right now. So thank you so much for
You're
having me,
welcome.
and it's completely my honor. First of all, I would like to say that to correct a little bit that
Please.
the 100 BBC year, yeah, it's the most inspiring women of the year, not the most powerful, and
You're right,
um,
but
and it's a
powerful
very
means
important
but
distinct, yeah,
powerful means also to be inspired, is inspiring, and
inspiring, yeah,
every inspiring personality is
yeah.
also powerful through the inspiration that it brings to the community and the global
Yeah, but when
world.
when you think about powerful women in the world, you think about Angela Merkel or
You're
your Vice
totally right.
President Kamala Harris, and what BBC, of course, it is a huge honor for me to have been awarded with this distinction. I also went to London to the ceremony where all these awards were given, and it was a very important moment of my career. And the thing is that besides the importance of BBC as one of the most prominent global media in the world, the reason that why I was chosen for that was that I implemented and created an initiative against gender stereotypes in media. At the moment, I was the editor-in-chief of the magazines of El Mercurio, and one of them was a women's magazine, yeah. So working, I had other magazines that were, in my responsibility, but that one made me all the time think about why women were treated differently in media and why that was very, very important. And it was at the basis of another kind of discriminations and inequalities that women face all over the world and in Chile also. So I realized, for example, that Photoshop was used normally as, in a normal basis. Photographers and designers use it to change the image of women that were portrayed not only in the fashion sections or the beauty sections of that magazine, but also, for women that were interviewed because of their accomplishments or because of, they were ministers or scientists. So I realized that it was a completely common practice to use Photoshop all over the world to change women's appearance. And that didn't happen, of course, with men. They were allowed to have their bodies, they were allowed to have their age. But women, at that point, we were forced to be portrayed in a way that was accepted,
Mm-hmm.
and that shocked me. So then I developed this campaign against stereotypes that, you know, um, was not only for fashion sections, and we had some kind of them of that kind of pledge. For example, not hiring models that were underage, and not hiring models that they were not healthy, that their uh, health condition was not considered in the standard that the medical community accepts as healthy, because we know that in the model business and all that, a lot of them are forced to be very, very thin. And the other thing was, it was a pledge not to use Photoshop to change women's image in any way. And that was something I thought was pretty obvious to do. Like, okay, we're going to commit to something because we believe in this. And it created a lot of attention. A lot of media from Latin America, from BBC, called me to interview me. Huffington Post, a lot of media outlets were very, very impressed, because it was something very unique, that someone decided, okay, we are not going to follow this way of doing things. And that's why at the end of the year, BBC recognized this initiative against women's stereotypes. And this is in the basis, I would say, in my motivation to continue this at a university in a
Mm-hmm.
special chair on women and media, to further investigate other ways of discrimination for women in media besides the image one, which is it's something very important. And a lot of countries have developed laws and different initiatives to change this and to limit the way women are portrayed, are not allowed to have their own age and their own bodies when they appear in media. And the second thing is that I wouldn't consider, and I'm not the leading journalist of my country. That would be completely out of base. In Chile we have a lot of very, very good journalists, both men and women, and I'm part of a community of people that have had the privilege to report and write, and now on TV or on radio, this part of the history of our country. I began my career as a journalist, Thanos, when Chile came back from dictatorship. So my own generation experience being a journalist is, okay, we are the last generation alive in Chile that has real memories about what it was to live in dictatorship. When I began to study at university, it was 1986, so we were still under dictatorship of Pinochet. That, it was one of the cruelest dictatorship in history, and of course the worst part of Chilean history. And so I get out of university, I began to work, and then democracy came back to Chile. So I'm part of a group of people that, and so much accomplished people than me live here in my country.
And I can say that from your words and the way that you express your accomplishments and your career background, I must say that you have the a spirit of modesty. You are modest, but me as presenting you, let me say that I think as an exterior observer that you are one of the leading journalism figures in your country, and I take this responsibility of this opinion about you. And my next question, I would like to go back to the initiative that you described about the stereotypes of how women had been represented in advertisements, in media, that they had to follow a particular framework about how
Mhm.
they look. I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does your initiative signify probably the beginning of this new movement of authenticity of how women are represented in the public picture, in the public discourse. Because after 2015, we've seen that there is a development of, of making women less guilty for what they are and how they look. And companies from the private sector have started adopted this profile of authenticity and not distorting the image to a way of perfectionist, which is a mispresentation of the real image of human beings.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question. At some point, the initiative was a leading one in Chile, definitely, and it was a leading one, I would say, in Latin America and in a lot of places, and that's why it created so much attention over it. But I think we were we were reading the moment right. I wouldn't say that we created all this movement. That would be completely, overstating the power that you can have in change things. But I think it was a step, a real step. Yeah, and I think what was important was to prove that it was possible. At the beginning of this initiative, when I said, okay, we have to, I began to do research, and I said, what happens in other countries? I saw, for example, that Israel had one of the first laws about this. It was created by a congresswoman that was also a doctor, and she saw so many young women with alimentary disorders, with anorexia and things like that, that she said, okay, this has to stop. I mean, these images are also not even real. I mean, real models are very out of reach, what they propose with their very thin bodies. But these people are not even real. I mean, these images are completely fictional. I mean, they don't even exist in reality. So researching that, I said, okay, the point is to prove that it's possible. At the beginning, Thanos, a lot of people told me, even people from inside the team, saying, you're crazy. This is impossible. All the advertisers are going to get out of the magazine. No one is going to want to be portrayed in the magazine, to have a picture there. And they told me that no photographers would like to work in a magazine that had that kind of standards about reality. So I said, this is a completely crazy world. When I began working as a journalist, in the 88, 89, 90, while I was still at university, there was no digital pictures. So photographers, they took the pictures, and the pact was about reality. You can of course put makeup in someone, you can use different kinds of lights, or you can use makeup, but you can't, completely change it. That was the deal. So there was a lot of fear and saying, this can't be done. And when it was possible, and to show that a lot of photographers, some of them would say, okay, I want to change everything. And they believe in altering, in changing women's image, because they say to me, Paula, this woman doesn't look well if she's not photoshopped. And I said, what are you talking about? So we have to please you. So women have to please the photographer. We have to please the designer standards to be covered. And what about accomplishments? What about women saying, okay, I'm here because I'm, creating the vaccine for coronavirus? You have to Photoshop her or to do something, in order to put her in the cover of a magazine. So what's in that kind of thinking that it was obviously unchallenged before. So when we had these photographers, when we have the people very happy to be in the magazine, when they saw that natural is fine. This is what it is. It's like how we are talking today. This is my house. This is the light that I have. This is the person that I am. So what's wrong with that? Who is going to feel cheated? It's the opposite. So I think we were part of a movement, of a wave that completely changed, as you say, in the last 5 years. And now media, photographers, personal figures that use these kind of things, or that they hire models that are 14 years old, very thin and all that, they are punished by the public. And so I think we were part of that, and I'm very proud for that, because at the moment was kind of what are you doing? You're crazy. And then now it's mainstream, and that's very, very good, because that's when things really change. When, as you say, you see advertising using different kind of women with different ages, different bodies. It's like saying, and now women feel empowered to say, why do you treat me like this? If they make you feel uncomfortable with your age or with your body. The age thing, Thanos, is really interesting, because one of the things that the photographers really were very, very reluctant to change was to change not to erase the riddles. So you say, they wanted all the women to look like 30-year-olds, and it's like, okay, this woman is 60. Why do you want to erase, the experience of her life, the years that have passed? I'm proud of how I look now. This is how I look at 52. I don't want to look 30.
And this brings me to the next question, which is a little bit personal question of how, because you grew up during the years and the decades that was the stereotype of having the women look in a certain way, look young, not natural, with a lot of Photoshop. And this was the stereotype in all media. When you became an adult and started your career in Chile, and to go through the path of becoming a journalist, and I keep saying a leading journalist, did you ever feel that you are falling into this trap to present yourself as a journalist and as a woman in your country based on all these stereotypes? Uh, did you have the strength to say, no, I don't approve this way, or this was something that generated in your mind when you become more mature, more experienced, and that was generated your idea to start this initiative that we talked about? I would like to
Well,
hear
it's
from
very,
you about the
yes,
previous
it's
part of
really interesting, because I think all these kind of ideas or things are related normally to your own experience or what you see around you. When I began my life as a journalist, and I began working for a feminist magazine that is not, now in available. It was called Blume Pincel, and it was a group of feminist women. It was an opposition magazine against Pinochet, but it was a women's magazine also, and feminist. So and that was my first job, and I really looked for that job. I loved the magazine, and I went there. I didn't know anyone. I knocked the door, and I asked to talk to the editor-in-chief, and I told her, I love your magazine, how you treat women, how you put, this this fight for women's rights in print, even in those difficult years. And so she hired me, and that was my first job. So I think that from the beginning I was very aware of the inequalities that women face. Um, of course, more at that time than now, but even now we have a lot of things that we have to change, because they are unfair and they are gender related. And second is that most of my career was in print media. So I was writing, I was editing. So it's not your image, your personal image that is upfront. It's what you write, it's your work. So I didn't feel at any moment that I had to, be a certain way to achieve something. It was the opposite. I mean, it was my own. When you write, or when you write books or op-eds or interviews or you edit, it's more anonymous in the way that one thing is your work and the other thing is your person or your own image. It's different, of course, on television, that
And
when
what
I
about
see you,
and
and
what
and
about
now, so
interpersonal relationships with your colleagues, with your social circle? Because it's not only about the journalism status of being a writer, columnist. It was also the presence that you and many other women, all women, have in their personal life. You know,
yes.
um, how did you manage that?
Well, I think that every woman in my country, and I think all over the world, and you read that, from anyone, any woman that gets out of the traditional stereotype that thinks that women belong to the private life and to only to home, and that the public arena is only for men. Then every time a woman challenges that, uh, I think it's possible that pays a price, in the sense that maybe things are going to be more difficult. Maybe you have to all the time, be the first to be there, or feel that you have to all the time show that you really, deserve your position. I think that's something that's very, very common. And I don't feel that I was discriminated as a woman, because since I was very young, I had positions. When I was 25, I was named editor of the magazine where I worked. At 27, I was the editor-in-chief, which is not normal in Chile or anywhere that young people have that kind of opportunities. So, but I would say that you feel that two things I experienced. Something is that people, I have three kids, so they were very small when I was 27, and I already had three children. So it was a huge challenge to have all, to manage all these responsibilities. But I was very organized, and my husband is very, very supportive. So I was able to do that. And my kids now are very big, so I have seen that they are wonderful human beings, and I'm very, very proud of them. And but some people will be very mean. For example, in the school, some other parents would say, "Oh, these kids, they never see their mom because she's all the time working," and that kind of things are very, very mean. And that was not true, because I was, home very early, with them. So you feel that kind of people saying, "Okay, why does she want to have a position that is, a responsibility, with responsibility and all that, if she has small children? She should have to choose."
Does this
And
does this still remain internally in the society? Because you're talking about, some examples 20 years ago, 15 years ago. But what about today? Do you think that there is some progress in the society in Chile and in general? Because you have an
yes,
international experience.
yes, I think that it's been progress, definitely. Now, I wouldn't. I think that if someone would say that she shouldn't work, or your kids don't see you, and that would be completely rejected. But now, Thanos, during the pandemic, we've seen that in Chile, and I think it's all over the world, women are the ones that are suffering from losing their jobs, losing their jobs, because some of them were the first ones to be eliminated, or because they have to take care of the children. And it's not a society where the responsibilities are shared 50-50. So in Chile, for example, it's 800,000 women have lost their jobs. Some of them are not even trying, because schools are closed and daycares are closed. So, who's going to take care of the kids? So these women, they had to take care of the kids. And if they want to work, they have to work when the kids, are sleeping. So they're having a very stressful, very, very stressful and difficult life. And so things have changed, but not how they have to change. When it's not that, by default, if the kids don't have schools or daycares, then it's the women that has to take all the responsibility in their backs. And that happens in Chile. That happen. I don't know if is the same in the US, but I've read a lot of reports at the New York Times of very, very overwhelmed moms feeling the same, like, okay, no one is helping me. It's not the state giving any answers to lack of daycare, of schools, or systems of support. Men, the people expect them to work full time, and so they are leaving the workforce. So I think, it's a mixed answer.
Mhm.
It's at one point yes, and the other thing is not the case.
You I saw online on YouTube recently, a few months ago, about a presentation of your research about the impact of coronavirus on women and women in journalism. Correct me if I am wrong. Can you give us two, three major points of what you've seen, what you've explored, um, as an impact, as the side effect of COVID on women? And the second question I would like to ask you is, do you think that journalism has been affected by COVID 19 in a way that creates the obligation for media organizations and newsrooms to transform themselves and to apply um, their business in a new model that can be sustainable in the virtual world. I would like to have your thoughts about that.
Thank you. Well, the first question, it was about last year I was named Pointer Fellow by Yale University,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I gave that conference about the situation of women in Chile related to COVID. And I want to add that one of the biggest honors of my life and the best moments of my life was that I'm a Yale World Fellow. So I spent a semester in 2012 at Yale University with a wonderful group of people, and that really was, something that changed my life and the way I see things. So I'm very, very grateful to Yale University for that fellowship, and I really, really think it's one of the best that a journalist or anyone can apply to open the way we see the world. And
I must say it is really important, these particular fellowships, because I had been a fellow at Columbia Journalism School, the Night Budget Fellowship. For us as internationals, you're from Chile, I'm originally from Greece, it is really important that universities are opening their doors and opportunities in these fellowships to international journalists, not only to national journalists in this country or in any other country. And I think that this is
yeah, definitely.
important.
And I have to add that this fellowship is only for international people. It's not for American professionals, and
It's
it's
even
open
more
not only to
important.
journalists, but it's open. It's not only for journalists, but it's only for international fellows. So it's really, really remarkable initiative. So I would say three things that
Mhm.
are really, really urgent to tackle now related to gender and COVID. One is domestic violence that has risen all over the world. In Chile is something really, really terrible. The amount of women suffering from violence inside their homes during lockdowns and during all these moments where they can't really get out of their places. So Chile has had to implement new places as different countries all over the world to take these women out of their homes and to protect them and their children. So this is one of the things that a lot of people are very shocked about and thinking about this and what happened and the amount of violence that remains in the 21st century against women, and in this special moment of lockdown, of being inside home, of having being very vulnerable um, to what the husband can do to them without the help of other people and without being able to reach other people, and has happened. So that's the first thing. I think it's really, really serious, and it's embarrassing for the whole planet that one of the consequences was that all this violence was put in women inside their homes. It's something that really can't be
Shocking to talk
yeah,
about
it's
that in
shocking.
the 21st century in 2021,
Yes.
2020.
The second thing is that when I was talking to you about work, I mean, I think in the US is the same figure. A lot of women has lost their jobs. Because they were working in certain sectors that were most affected by COVID, because they had the jobs that were, easier to eliminate in a moment of crisis for companies, and or because they couldn't really continue juggling, working inside home if they had the chance to work, the privilege to work like us inside home, with the kids at home and with all the domestic and parenting responsibilities in their shoulders. So that's the second thing that I think is really, really something that in every developed country, they would say, women are not having enough children. So they're having, the population is going down. So what's going to happen when demography at the end, you have a lot of old people without kids and all that. But what are the help that the government, the state, the society, everyone is helping women to do both things. I mean, we're that kind of debate, a 20th century debate of, can we have it all? Do we have to work? Do we have to have kids? I mean, it's ridiculous that we are, 20 years in 21st century still debating if women should have it all. I mean, what is that? We are human beings. We are supposed to have the same rights as everyone else. So that's something that is really, really worrying for me. And the third thing about women is that I think that besides domestic violence, there is still a lot of different kind of symbolic violence against women. What we were talking before about, stereotypes about the image of women is the same thing. Symbolic ways when women are demeaned, where women are, portrayed as less capable of men, and I think that it's really, really strange in COVID moments, because the most outstanding leaders are all women. Angela Merkel, Jacinda Ardern, the leaders of Nordic countries. When they are leading this in a very, very good way, very acknowledged by everyone else, and toxic chauvinist men like Bolsonaro, like Donald Trump, they did a mess.
And we should not forget what happened recently with the president of the European Commission.
Yeah,
who had an
yeah,
official
definitely.
visit to
So
Turkey.
that's something that I really wish that after this, yeah. I was, as leading, as the executive director of a chair on women and media, that kind of thing that I take it to class. What is happening here? I mean, it's, and some people would say, but this is so, this is not important, but it really is. And it really is that, of course, the leader of Turkey, an authoritarian leader, wants to make a political point, leaving, the leader of the European Union standing, as a woman. He wants to say something. He wants to say, you're not an equal. You're going to be there, which is something that a lot of women have felt in our lives so many times before, And the second thing that I want to say in that is that I don't remember who was the other gentleman sitting with Erdogan.
The
But
president of the
what
European
shocked me
Council.
was that he was his colleague, and he didn't get up and gave her the seat. He didn't did anything. He remained there, and that two things make me think of, is very symbolic of what happens every day. Some patriarchal kind of man wants to make a political point, like putting women in their own place this way, that looks like nothing, but it is a lot. We all saw what we saw. And so one responsibility is his. But the second one is that the one that sees everything that's happening, he's very clear about the symbolic violence that is he's committing at the moment with a woman, a powerful woman, that he wants to demean her power, but he doesn't do anything. He keeps silent. So these things continue to go on and on and on until one man or one person stands up and say, this is not okay. So I'm not going to participate in this, I'm not going to participate in this. And I want to tell you, Thanos, I don't know if this happens in the US, but in Chile it happens a lot, for example, that there are seminaries, conferences, panels with only men there. It still happens here. It has a lot of criticism in social media, but it still happens until some men are doing this in Chile. They say, if there's no women, or it's not parity, or there's, some amount of women, I'm not going to participate in your conference. And that is the only thing that really makes change faster. As World Economic Forum calculates that it's going to take 100 years to have full equality between men and women. It's too much.